Hey guys, welcome back. Today we are going to be talking about Fantastic Beasts and the Crimes of Grindelwald and Robin Hood, as you probably guessed from the title. So we'll start off with Fantastic Beasts because it's the one I've got the most to say about. So Fantastic Beasts is the second part in the franchise, following on from Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. This one continues off the story and we follow the characters that were introduced. So Newt, Grindelwald, Tina, etc. So if you haven't seen the first one, I'd recommend doing it because it sort of sets these characters up so you understand their position in the wizarding world. The story itself, I enjoyed, for the most part, sort of the continued growth of the wizarding world. We got to see Paris and their Ministry of Magic. Seen the film or seen any reviews of the film already. There was a lot of created subplots about different characters, where they were from. We've seen a couple of flashbacks to Hogwarts and when Newt was at school, and we return to Hogwarts in present time as well. So in terms of performances, Grindelwald's performance, should I say Johnny Depp's performance as Grindelwald, I thought was one of the strongest in the films. I feel for Johnny Depp, Grindelwald is a very natural character when you compare him to the other characters he's played, like Jack Sparrow or Edward Scissorhands, which are all characters with very strange and prominent characteristics, where I feel like Grindelwald is, in relation, a fairly naturalistic character. There's not much that sets him apart as a person, apart from the powers that he holds. So within the film, we see his power grow in a sense that we see his grasp on the wizarding world grow. So we see him connect with other witches and wizards and sort of really sell himself and his vision of the world. Because he is the villain, he's got a purpose. He wants to see wizards rise up over all of the planets, so sort of take over and kill anyone who isn't magic. So back to the subplots. A lot of people I've spoken to, reviews that I've heard, and even myself, this plays both a good and a bad depending on the position you take when you're viewing it. I enjoyed it because I think I really set myself up for being a second film in a franchise of 5. So if you were to take this film on its own, there was a lot of storylines that were introduced very quickly without much warning, and then at the end of the film, a lot of them weren't tied up. So if you were to take this film as a standalone, I totally understand that point of view. But when you stack it up, that it is the second in 5 films, I think there's a lot that is still going to be explored, and questions are going to be answered, which is, I think, why I enjoyed it so much, is because I knew that I was going to raise a lot of questions that the answers weren't going to be given to me then, more so compared to the first film. So the first film, in terms of the storyline, was really just setting up the characters and the time that we were in. I would say this film sort of, I wouldn't say ignores, but puts the first film aside. You could very much come into watching this film and get a gist of the story, the characters and their position, which again I think for some people may be a disappointment that it's sort of just disregarded what's happened in the first film. So in terms of plots, there is a lot in terms of sort of family, being unknown, about sort of finding yourself, and then sort of that line between good and evil. One of my favourite storylines is Nagini. Anyone who is a fan of Harry Potter obviously will know Nagini is the snake, in which is a Horcrux of Voldemort in the Harry Potter franchise. Here we get to see a bit of the backstory of Nagini. So the film tells us that Nagini is in fact a woman who has a blood curse which causes her to take the shape and body of a snake. And the film is very quick to let us know that this blood curse will eventually mean that she will no longer be able to return to human form, which then sets up nicely for why the Harry Potter series never explored that. I am looking forward to, and I hope that they explore that story further, because her position in the film, she is not an evil person. She really much just wants to be safe. So I really want to see what sets her on that path, and to see if she had a choice in the path to evil and to Voldemort's side. Another sort of subplot, I wouldn't say subplot, but cameo, is Professor McGonagall. So any of you who have seen this film will know exactly the point in the film I'm talking about, and how unnecessary it was. Yeah, so one part in the film I sort of disconnected and was like, why is this happening? And I think it was really just there to force more connections to a Harry Potter saga of this universe. And the mess just stems from, we're told in the books that she was born in the mid to late 1930s, whereas this film is set in 1927 and 28. So from what J.K. Rowling's already told us through her books, through other means like Pottermore and the films, she wouldn't have been alive when these films are set. There's not much context to her being in there. They could have been any other professor, because she doesn't provide anything that advances the plot. It is really just this is your instant connection to the films which started off this journey. Again, that may be explored again in the third, fourth, or fifth films. I highly doubt, because the significance of her being there was minimal. Jude Law gave a pretty good performance as Dumbledore. Obviously, Dumbledore in the 1920s was much younger than we get to see him in Harry Potter, set in the 90s. So we get to see his younger self. My only question is, how did we get from this to this? I mean, young, dapper, three-piece suit to robe-wearing hippie. Another part which people I've seen it with online didn't quite enjoy was the ending reveal / twist, which tells us about Credence and who he is. So anyone that's seen the first film, Credence was a complex character who wasn't really explored in the amount of time that they had. In this film, they sort of bypassed that, and what we essentially get is he didn't die and he's now in Europe. Which again was a bit disappointing, because I feel like he has been set up to be a very central character to the story that they're telling, and I feel like that was just okay, we can just ignore everything that's happened in the first film and just start afresh again. But the premise of this film is him really soul searching to find his family. We find out in the first one he's adopted, and he has abusive parents who are against magic, and he has to suppress all these powers and feelings that he has. And in this film, he is searching, he's got his adoption papers, and he knows he has come from a family in Paris. The film sort of has a, who is it? Is it this person? Is it this person? With like Lestrange family, etc. Whereas right at the end, in the last scene, Grindelwald is with Credence alone in a room, and drops the bombshell that he is in fact Dumbledore's brother. We as viewers, I wouldn't say all viewers, as Harry Potter fans, know that Dumbledore had only one brother and one sister, and we know the fate of both of them. We meet his brother in the Harry Potter franchise. I personally don't believe that what Grindelwald said is true. And I feel like it is a very obvious sort of sidestep to sort of capture Credence, twist him to use his powers for what Grindelwald wants. So yeah, the film, I would say it was an okay film. I enjoyed it, but it was definitely a film to set up the next film. So if you are going to see it, be prepared for a lot of unanswered questions and a lot of quick, undeveloped characters being introduced and sort of thrown away, disregarded. I imagine that they will be picked back up further on in the film. So I would give this film 3.5 Death Stars. So now we're going to move on to Robin Hood, which is a film that I went to see fully expecting a god-awful film. It has been getting terrible reviews, by critics and fans alike. I think it's currently sitting at around 12% on Rotten Tomatoes, which I think is the lowest rated film that I've willingly went to see in the cinema. So I went to see it fully expecting just to see a god-awful trash film, and that was sort of why I was going. What I got though, although not a good film by any means, but it was an entertaining watch, and it sort of goes at the Robin Hood story that almost everyone knows from a slightly different angle, and I feel like, for me, develops quite a strong backstory into why Robin Hood does what he does, and sort of introduces this alternative version of Robin Hood, which may be the reason people don't like it, is it's kind of going against what they know. But for me, who's a massive fan of fantasy films, it wasn't terrible. I would watch it again if it was on TV. I wouldn't rush to see it at the cinema, but I feel like it deserves way more than the 12% that it's getting in critic reviews. So if you're looking for entertaining, fun, easy watch with some good action scenes, then Robin Hood's for you. It's not a complex story. There's not much in terms of character development in any other character apart from Robin Hood, who we see on quite a wide arc become the thief we know he is. But a lot of the other characters that you know from the universe are just used as sort of plot devices to move this story to its end goal. So yeah, I didn't want to go into that one too much because I didn't have too much to say about it, just because of the nature of the film. I expected a lot worse than I got, so I think I was just quite surprised overall. Yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed. Please subscribe and like my Facebook so you're always kept up to date about what my thoughts are. I will be posting the latest film news, film trailers on my Facebook page as well, so if you want to keep in the loop